Hello everyone, welcome back to the channel. My name's Jack. I hope you're all doing great. In this video today, I'm going to be sharing with you the 5 mistakes that I see people make when it comes to interviewing within the civil service and just going through general competency style interviews. Not only have I made all of the mistakes that I'm about to share with you, but I've spoken to many people and these are generally common themes that come up when we go through that dreaded post-interview analysis. I am not an expert in this by any means, and again, this isn't official guidance, but hopefully by sharing these mistakes with you, it will enable you to smash your job interviews and get the jobs that you're all going for. The first mistake that I see people making is doing the STAR approach, but doing it in the wrong way. So if you've seen any of my previous videos, you'll know that the STAR approach is how we recommend you structure your answers to past example and competency style questions. If you don't know what STAR means, it stands for situation, task, action, and the result. The mistake that I see people making is spending way too long on the situation and the task in order to set the scene. However, they then run out of time when it comes to the action and the result, which are actually the most important parts. If you think about it from this perspective, the interviewer can't really start assessing you until you start talking about the action and the things that you've done on this task that you're talking about. So if you spend way too long setting the scene, giving people context about the situation, it only eats into the time that you have to talk about the action. This is a really big mistake because the action is what the interviewer is actually interested in. They're interested in hearing what you did on this piece of work or project and how you completed this task and then the result. The answer to this, to avoid doing this mistake, is to be very concise when you set the scene by saying the situation and the task, and then spend a larger amount of time focusing on the action and the result of that action. The second mistake that I see people making is not sharing lessons learned after they've given their STAR answer. Even if the result of that project was absolutely amazing, you will have learned some things that you can use going forward. And you should include this in your answer at the end by saying, well, even though the result was really good, a few things went wrong and I learned this. And now going forward in future projects, I would do this and that because I've learned from that experience. That is a brilliant, brilliant way to round off your answer and show the interviewer that you can really reflect and you're continuously looking to improve. So by not including lessons learned, you're really making a big mistake. The third mistake that I see people making is getting thrown by probe questions. By probe questions, I mean once you've finished your STAR answer and your example question, you'll probably notice that the interviewer will follow up and ask further questions. I remember the first time this happened to me and I was really thrown because I thought, oh damn, I haven't answered the question they're after, or maybe I've missed something in the answer that I prepped. The trick is to not take it personally and just understand that the interviewer is most likely really trying to help you by digging out some detail on one of the things that maybe you didn't think was that important, but they're really interested in. So try not to get thrown by these probe questions because they're there to really help you and make sure that you hit all of the essential criteria. A simple way to not get thrown by these probe questions is to say your example to a friend or a colleague and then ask them to ask you questions about it. This means you'll go into the interview and you can deduce what sort of questions they may ask and you won't be likely to be thrown off by these probe questions. Another thing is, I would say, just expect to be probed on your answers and then you won't be surprised when they come up. The fourth mistake that I think people make is not studying the job advert in enough detail. One common theme I've heard people say about the strength questions is that, they're so vague and they could ask me anything. Well, they're probably not going to ask you anything. What I would say is if you look at the job advert, you can probably hazard a guess at the type of strengths that they're looking for from you. Put yourself in the position that you're already in the role. What type of strengths do you imagine that you'll need to do daily? And you'll be able to glean that that from the job advert. For example, if the job advert mentions working with a variety of stakeholders, both internal and external, they're probably going to ask you about communicating with multiple stakeholders and how you adapt your communication style. And they're also probably going to ask you about influencing people to see your point of view. By not studying the job advert prior to the interview, you are really making a big mistake because you're likely to be thrown off by certain questions. One bonus tip for this, which I've done in the past and I think is really, really helpful. On most job adverts, actually, I think on all job adverts, there'll be a point of contact. So there'll be someone most likely in that team, maybe who's already going to interview you if you do get an interview. And they're there to kind of answer any questions or any queries that you may have. One tip that I've got for you, reach out to this person and ask them, could you borrow 15 minutes of their time and ask them a few questions? Not only will this give you more of an idea about what the job entails, but it gets you into the conversation with that person already. So when it comes to interview, you already kind of feel familiar with them. Okay, the fifth and final mistake is using we and not saying I. I think people have a tendency to say, we did this as a team and our team did that. Whereas what I would really encourage you to say and what you kind of need to say is, I did this, I led on that, this was me, I did that, etc. I completely understand where you're coming from. It's very, very rare for us to do something in isolation. The majority of the work that we do is in collaboration with people. However, for the interview, you really need to remember that the interviewer doesn't have any context. Unless you say I, they have no idea what you have and haven't done. I would really, really encourage you to say I and sell yourself. I know it's not natural for some people to want to sell themselves, but you really, really have to say I and take ownership of the things you've done and your achievements. And also be proud, you know, this is your interview. This is kind of your chance to showcase what you've done and what you've achieved. So say I and don't use we. So that is it, guys. That is the 5 biggest mistakes that I see people making when it comes to the civil service interviews and just general competency style interviews. I hope that was helpful, and I hope along the way I kind of shared ways in which you can overcome these mistakes so that when it comes to your interview, you absolutely smash it and get the job. As always, if you enjoyed this video, please consider hitting the subscribe button and let me know if you want any other videos on certain topics down in the comments below. Other than that, take care, have a great day, and I'll see you soon.